I always thought family meant unconditional love until the day I discovered what unconditional really meant to my parents. It was during my senior year of high school when I overheard the conversation that would change everything. The quiet discussion behind closed doors that wasn't meant for my ears. I'm Nadine, and this is the story of how I learned that karma takes its sweet time, but it never forgets to collect its dues. Zane needs this opportunity, Sam. You know how much he's struggled to find his path. My mother's voice drifted through the crack under my parents' bedroom door. I'd only stopped to pick up the laundry basket when their words froze me in place. But it's Nadine's college fund, Scarlett. We've been saving it since she was born. She's smart. She'll figure something out. She always does. Zane's business plan is solid. This could be his big break. I stood there, my heart pounding against my ribs, as my parents decided my future without me. The laundry basket grew heavy in my arms, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Fine, my father finally said. But how do we tell her? They never did tell me, not directly anyway. Instead, I watched as my brother strutted around the house, waving his business plans like victory flags, talking about his revolutionary tech startup that would change the world. Hey, Squirt! Zane caught me in the kitchen a few days later. Guess who's going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg? I forced a smile, stirring my coffee. Let me guess. You found some investors? Better. Mom and Dad are backing me. They believe in me, Nadine. Finally, someone's taking a chance on my dreams. The spoon clinked against the ceramic as I set it down. That's great, Zane. Really great. I know you're probably worried about college, he said, reaching over to ruffle my hair like I was still 5. But once this takes off, I'll pay for your whole education. Promise. I ducked away from his hand. Don't worry about it. I've got plans of my own. That night, I called my best friend Mila. They gave him my college fund, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Every penny of it. What? Mila's outrage crackled through the phone. They can't do that. Have you confronted them? No. I was already formulating a plan, and I'm not going to. Nadine, you have to say something. This isn't fair. Life isn't fair, Mila, but I'm not letting this stop me. I'm going to law school. Law school? But how? I'll figure it out. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. But I'm going to become a lawyer, and I'm going to be damn good at it. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen where my parents were having breakfast. Mom was humming as she poured coffee, Dad was reading his newspaper, and Zane was nowhere to be seen, probably sleeping in, dreaming of his future success. Morning, sweetie, Mom said. Want some pancakes? No thanks. I kept my voice light, casual. I just wanted to let you know I got accepted to State University, full-time student starting this fall. Dad lowered his paper. Honey, about college. We need to talk. No need, I cut him off, maintaining my smile. I've already accepted a job at the campus coffee shop, and I'm picking up weekend shifts at the library. Should be enough to cover tuition if I'm careful. The color drained from my mother's face. Nadine, It's fine, Mom. Really, I understand completely. I grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl. Family comes first, right? I left them sitting there, speechless, their coffee growing cold. As I walked to school that morning, I felt lighter somehow. They thought they knew me, their reliable, responsible daughter who always figured things out. They had no idea that their perfect, understanding little girl was already plotting a path that would take years to complete. Let them think I was fine with it. Let them believe their betrayal hadn't cut me to the bone. Let them assume I'd forgiven and forgotten. I bit into the apple, savoring its tartness. Some debts take longer to collect than others, but that doesn't make them any less valid. And as I would learn in law school years later, every contract has its fine print, even unspoken family ones. That morning, I made myself a promise. I would become successful not despite them, but to spite them. And when the time came, when they needed me as much as I had once needed them, they would learn exactly what kind of woman their little girl had grown up to be. Another double shot espresso? Mila asked, watching me down my 3rd coffee of the morning. You're going to vibrate through law school at this rate. We were huddled in the campus library, surrounded by towers of textbooks and empty energy drink cans. 3 years had passed since that morning in my parents' kitchen, and I was halfway through my law degree. Can't sleep anyway, I muttered, highlighting another passage in my constitutional law textbook. My shift at the diner starts in 4 hours. You know, normal people actually sleep between classes and work. I glanced up at her. Normal people have college funds. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as another student walked past our table, giving us the universal tired law student nod. It was 2 a.m., and the library was still half full. Speaking of family, Mila said carefully, have you heard from them lately? Oh, you mean since Zane's big investment meeting last month? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Mom called to tell me how proud they are. Apparently he's about to revolutionize social media or whatever. With your money. Former money, I corrected, turning the page with more force than necessary. Ancient history. My phone buzzed, a text from my supervisor at the diner. Need you to come in early tomorrow. Linda called in sick again. I typed back a quick okay before Mila could see it, but she knew me too well. Don't tell me you're picking up another shift, she groaned. You're already working 60 hours a week. 65, actually. I started packing up my books. And now it's 68. Nadine, this is insane. You're going to burn out. What's insane is watching my brother blow through my college fund while I'm surviving on ramen and coffee. I stood up, swaying slightly from exhaustion. But you know what keeps me going? Knowing that one day I'll be the one they come to for help. And when that day comes, you'll help them because you're a better person than they are? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We'll see. The next morning, I was elbow deep in dirty dishes when my phone rang. It was my mother. Nadine, sweetie, are you coming home for Thanksgiving? I balanced the phone between my ear and shoulder, scrubbing at a particularly stubborn pan. Can't, Mom. Working. But it's Thanksgiving. Zane's bringing his new girlfriend, and he wants to tell everyone about his latest business developments. Fascinating. The pan finally came clean. But some of us have to work for a living. There was a pause. Honey, are you still upset about my shift's starting, Mom? Gotta go. I hung up and threw the pan into the rinse sink with more force than necessary, sending water splashing across my already stained apron. Family drama? My coworker Ramon asked, sliding past me with a stack of plates. The usual. You know, he said, lowering his voice. My sister's law firm is looking for summer interns. Paid ones. I could put in a word. I turned to face him so fast I almost dropped a glass. Are you serious? You're top of your class, right? They'd be lucky to have you. That night, I sat on my tiny apartment's fire escape, looking out over the city lights. My feet were aching from the double shift, my eyes were burning from studying, but for the first time in months, I felt something like hope. My phone buzzed again, Zane this time. I almost declined the call, but curiosity got the better of me. Hey, Squirt! Guess what? We just secured another round of funding. Congratulations, I said flatly. Listen, I know things have been weird, but I wanted you to know I haven't forgotten my promise. Once we go public, I'll pay for your entire education, with interest. I looked down at my hands, scarred from hot dishes and paper cuts, calloused from carrying trays and turning pages. Don't bother, Zane. I'm doing just fine on my own. But, actually, I have some exciting news, too. I just got offered a paid internship at Stewart & Morris. Oh. He sounded deflated. That's great, sis. Yeah, it is. Funny how things work out, isn't it? I ended the call and looked back at the city lights. 3 more semesters, then the bar exam, and then I'd be ready. Ready to show them exactly what their reliable, responsible daughter had become. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Mila. You're going to crush it at that internship, and then you're going to crush them. I smiled. For once, it reached my eyes. The jury finds in favor of the plaintiff. The words rang through the courtroom like music. My client, a small business owner who'd been defrauded by a larger corporation, burst into tears. I maintained my professional composure, but inside, I was soaring. 5 years after graduation, and I'd just won my biggest case yet. Brilliant work, Nadine, Ramon said as we packed up our briefcases. He'd become a mentor at the firm, taking me under his wing after that internship years ago. Partner track is looking pretty good for you. Thanks to you, I replied, but he waved it off. This was all you. Speaking of celebration, there's a table waiting at Lorenzo's. The whole team's coming. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. Again. I declined it. Family? Ramon asked, noticing my expression. They always seem to call when something good happens, like they can sense it. He gave me a knowing look. Maybe it's time to... Don't. I snapped my briefcase shut. Lorenzo sounds great. Let me just change first. But as I walked into my office, my mother called again. With a sigh, I answered, Nadine, finally, we've been trying to reach you all day. I was in court, Mom. Some of us have jobs that actually require showing up. She ignored the jab. We need you to come to dinner tonight. It's important. I have plans. Please, sweetie. Your father and I, we need to discuss something with you, and Zane will be there. Of course he would. Mom, I just won a major case. I'm celebrating with my colleagues. This is family, Nadine. Surely that's more important than... Fine, I cut her off. Text me the time. 3 hours later, I walked into my childhood home wearing my court suit like armor. The smell of my mother's lasagna filled the air, my favorite dish. They were trying to butter me up. There's my successful daughter! Dad stood to hug me. I allowed it, briefly. We saw your name in the business section last week. Taking down corporate giants now, are we? Someone has to. I sat down, noting the tension in the room. So, what's this about? My mother bustled in with the lasagna. Let's eat first, shall we? Zane should be here any... The front door slammed. Zane walked in, looking decidedly less polished than the last time I'd seen him. His designer clothes seemed wrinkled, his face drawn. Sorry I'm late, he mumbled, dropping into a chair. Mom served the lasagna with shaking hands. Something was definitely wrong. How's the business, Zane? I asked innocently, taking a bite. Still revolutionizing social media? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad cleared his throat. That's actually what we needed to discuss, he said. There have been some setbacks. Setbacks? I raised an eyebrow. Do tell. The investors pulled out, Zane blurted. All of them. The whole thing's falling apart. I took another bite of lasagna, savoring it. How unfortunate. Nadine, Mom interjected, we know things haven't been perfect between us, but we're family, and right now, we need your help. My help? I set down my fork. What kind of help? Legal help, Dad said quietly. And financial. I looked around the table, at my brother's defeated posture, my mother's pleading eyes, my father's forced dignity. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I see. I dabbed my lips with a napkin. And what exactly happened to all that startup money? The silence was deafening. Gone, Zane whispered. All of it. And the house. Mom and Dad put up the house as collateral for the last round of funding. The house? I looked around at the home I'd grown up in, where I'd learned about betrayal behind closed doors. All of it? Mom started crying softly. We believed in him, Nadine, just like we've always believed in you. No, I said, my voice steel sharp. You believed in him. You invested in him. You gave him my future because you thought he was the safe bet. Please. Dad reached for my hand. I pulled it away. We know we made mistakes, but you're successful now. You made it on your own. Yes, I did. I stood up, smoothing my suit. And now you want me to save you from your own decisions. Will you help us? Zane asked, finally meeting my gaze. Please, sis. I know I don't deserve it, but I'll think about it. I picked up my briefcase. Have your paperwork ready tomorrow. All of it. If I'm going to help, I'm going to do it properly, legally. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. Mila. How'd it go? I typed back. Everything's falling into place. Time to show them what their little girl can really do. The engine purred to life, and I smiled in the darkness. Sometimes karma needed a little help, and I was more than happy to be its lawyer. The stack of financial documents on my desk told a story of spectacular failure. Bank statements, loan agreements, and credit card bills painted a picture of my brother's hubris in painful detail. "This is worse than I thought," I said, looking up at my family gathered in my office. "You're not just in debt, you're drowning in it." Zane slumped in his chair while Mom wrung her hands nervously. Dad just stared out my 20th floor window, his reflection showing every one of his 65 years. "How bad?" Mom whispered. 3.2 million. I let the number hang in the air, and that's not counting the personal loans. "Jesus Christ, Zane." Dad turned from the window. "You said it was under control." "The technology was solid," Zane shot back. "If the investors had just given us more time—" "More time?" I shuffled through the papers. "According to your former business partner, Serenity, you were burning through 100,000 a month with no revenue." Zane's head snapped up. "You talked to Serenity?" "Of course I did. I'm thorough." I pulled out her statement. She had some interesting things to say about where the money went. First-class flights, luxury hotels, elaborate client dinners. "That's how you build relationships in tech." "That's how you build debt," I corrected. "And now the house is on the line." Mom started crying again. I pushed a box of tissues across the desk, my gesture mechanical. "There has to be something you can do," Dad pleaded. "Some legal maneuver?" "There might be." I leaned back in my chair. "But you're not going to like it." "Anything," Mom said quickly. "We'll do anything." I pulled out a fresh legal pad. "First, I need to know exactly how much of my college fund went into this venture." The silence was immediate and thick. "Well," I pressed, "the exact amount, with dates." "Nadine," Dad started. "That was years ago." 250,000, Mom whispered. "It was supposed to cover your undergraduate and law school." I wrote the number down, adding it to my calculations. And the interest it would have earned over 10 years. "Is this really necessary?" Zane interrupted. "That money is gone. We need to focus on—" "On what?" I snapped. "On saving you again? On sacrificing more for the golden child?" "That's not fair," Mom protested. "Fair?" I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "Let's talk about fair. While I was working 3 jobs to put myself through school, you were funding his 5-star lifestyle with my future." "We thought," Dad began. "You thought he was the better investment." "Well, how's that working out for you?" Zane stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. "If you're just going to throw this in our faces—" "Sit down." My voice could have frozen hell. "You came to me for help. These are my terms. Take them or leave them." He sat. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, pulling out a fresh legal document. "I'll create a holding company to absorb the debt. I'll negotiate with the creditors, maybe get some of it reduced. But in exchange—" "Yes?" Mom leaned forward eagerly. "Everything goes through me. The house, the remaining assets, all of it. I'll have complete control over the restructuring." "You want us to sign over the house to you?" Dad's voice was incredulous. "I want you to sign over everything to me." I met each of their eyes in turn. Complete control. That's my offer. "And if we refuse?" Zane challenged. "Then you can find another lawyer. Good luck affording one." Mom touched Dad's arm. "We don't have a choice." "I'll have the papers ready tomorrow," I said, standing to signal the end of the meeting. "Don't worry, I'll make sure everything's legal. Ironclad, you might say." They filed out of my office like defeated soldiers, but Zane lingered behind. "I know what you're doing," he said quietly. "Do you?" "This isn't about helping us, it's about revenge." I smiled, all teeth and no warmth. "Now, why would you think that, big brother? I'm just being the reliable, responsible daughter. Isn't that what you all always wanted?" He shook his head. "You've changed." "No, I grew up. There's a difference." I opened my office door. "See you tomorrow. Don't be late. I'm billing by the hour." After they left, I called Mila. "They signed?" she asked. "Tomorrow. But they will. They're desperate enough." "Are you sure about this? It seems—" "What? Cold? Calculating? Cruel?" I watched the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. "They made their choices, Mila. Now they get to live with the consequences. Just don't lose yourself in this, Nadine. I touched the window, my reflection overlaying the darkening sky. Too late for that. They lost me years ago. They just didn't notice. This clause here, Ramon said, pointing to page 17 of my contract. It's legal, but brutal. Are you sure about this? I sat across from him in his office, early morning sunlight streaming through the blinds. They won't even notice it. They never read the fine print. That's what worries me. He leaned back, running a hand through his graying hair. This isn't just business, Nadine. This is your family. No, this is justice. I took the contract back. They made their choice years ago. Now I'm making mine. A knock at the door interrupted us. My assistant poked her head in. They're here. I gathered the papers, straightening my suit. Showtime. My family sat in the conference room, looking small against the mahogany table and floor-to-ceiling windows. Mom was wearing her Sunday best, as if dressing up would somehow make this easier. Before we begin, I said, setting down the contract, I need to confirm you've all reviewed this with independent counsel. We can't afford another lawyer, Dad admitted. I strongly advise. Just get on with it, Zane interrupted. We know you'll make it fair. I kept my face neutral. As you wish. Let's go through the main points. For the next hour, I walked them through the restructuring plan. The holding company would assume their debts. The house would be transferred to my control. Their assets would be managed under my supervision. Sign here, I pointed to the signature lines. And here, initial these pages. Mom's hand trembled as she signed. This feels so formal. It's business, Mom. Everything needs to be properly documented. But we're family, she protested weakly. Family? I couldn't help myself. Was it family when you gave away my future without even telling me? Nadine, Dad warned. No, let's talk about family. I stood up, pacing behind them. Let's talk about how you believed in Zane so much that you bet everything on him. My college fund, your house, your retirement. We've apologized for that, Zane said. Have you? All I remember is promises. Empty promises about paying me back once you made it big. I stopped behind his chair. How's that working out? That's enough. Dad slammed his hand on the table. We know we made mistakes. We're trying to make it right. By signing over everything to me, that's not making it right, Dad. That's desperation. Mom wiped her eyes. Please, sweetie, we're at your mercy here. I know. I returned to my seat, sliding the contract closer to them. Sign the papers. One by one, they signed. With each signature, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, years of resentment transforming into cold satisfaction. What happens now? Dad asked as I collected the documents. Now I start negotiating with the creditors. You'll receive monthly statements detailing the progress. I pressed the intercom. Please show them out. That's it? Zane stood up. You're not even going to... Going to what? Hug you? Tell you everything will be okay? I met his gaze. This isn't a Hallmark movie, Zane. This is real life. Your actions have consequences. After they left, I sat alone in the conference room, staring at their signatures. Mila's words from last night echoed in my head. Don't lose yourself in this. My phone buzzed, a text from Serenity, Zane's former business partner. Did they sign? Yes, I typed back. Everything's in place. Good. They deserve what's coming. I smiled, remembering how eager she'd been to share details about Zane's mismanagement. Hell hath no fury like a business partner scorned. Ramon appeared in the doorway. The papers are being filed as we speak. No turning back now. Good. You know, he said carefully, revenge might taste sweet, but it can leave a bitter aftertaste. I gathered my things, avoiding his concerned gaze. Then it's a good thing I've developed a taste for bitter things. Coffee, dark chocolate, justice. Nadine? Don't. I held up a hand. They made their bed years ago. Now they get to lie in it. As I walked back to my office, my phone buzzed again. Mom, we love you, sweetie. Thank you for helping us. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Finally, I typed, "Love has nothing to do with it. This is business." I set the phone down and looked out my window at the city below. Somewhere out there, my family was probably celebrating, thinking I'd saved them. They had no idea that their salvation was actually their reckoning. The contract sat on my desk, innocent looking, despite the poison hidden in its pages. Soon, very soon, they'd understand exactly what they'd signed, and I would be there to watch it all unfold. "The first payment is due next week," I announced, spreading documents across my parents' kitchen table. 1 month had passed since they'd signed the contract. "I've negotiated with most of the creditors, but Zane needs to start contributing." "Contributing?" Zane looked up from his phone. "I'm broke." "You're unemployed. There's a difference." I pulled out a job listing. "A friend's tech company is hiring. Entry-level position." He scoffed. "I was a CEO." "You were a failure," I corrected. "Now you're a debtor. The interview's on Thursday." Mom touched his arm. "Zane, honey, maybe you should—" "This is bullshit." He stood up, knocking his chair backward. "I'm not taking some coding monkey position." "Sit down." My voice could have cut glass. "You don't have a choice. It's in the contract." "What contract?" He snatched the papers from the table. "Show me where it says that." "Page 17, paragraph 3. All parties must maintain reasonable employment to service the debt." Right above the clause you didn't read about the house. Dad looked up sharply. "What about the house?" "Nothing to worry about," I smiled, "as long as everyone complies with the terms." The doorbell rang. Mom started to get up, but I waved her down. "That'll be Serenity," I said, walking to the door. "Serenity?" Zane's face paled. "What's she doing here?" His former business partner walked in, elegant in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Zane's new potential salary. "Hello, everyone. Hello, Zane." "You can't be here," he sputtered. "Actually, she can." I pulled out another document. "Serenity's company is buying the remaining assets of your failed venture. She's here to sign the paperwork." "You're selling to her?" He turned to our parents. "Don't let her do this." "They can't stop me," I said. "They signed over all decision-making authority, remember?" Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "We did what?" "Maybe you should have read the contract more carefully." I gestured for Serenity to sit. "Shall we begin?" The next hour was excruciating for everyone except Serenity and me. She signed with flourish, effectively taking control of what remained of Zane's company, including the patents he'd been certain would make him millions. "Always a pleasure doing business with you, Nadine," she said, standing to leave. "Oh, and Zane? That coding position we discussed? The interviews with my HR department." After she left, the silence was deafening. "You set this up," Zane accused. "You and her, you planned this." "Of course we did." I gathered the signed papers. "Serenity reached out months ago after you tried to push her out of the company. She was very helpful in providing documentation of your creative accounting." "Nadine," Dad's voice was heavy. "What exactly did we sign?" "A very thorough contract," I met his gaze. "One that gives me complete control over everything, including the house." "But you said—" "I said I would help, and I am. I'm helping you understand that actions have consequences." Mom started crying again. "We trusted you." "Like I trusted you?" I laughed. "The difference is, I put everything in writing. Maybe next time you'll read the fine print." Zane lunged across the table, scattering papers. Dad caught him before he could reach me. "You vindictive bitch," he shouted. "You're enjoying this." "Actually, I am." I calmly collected the fallen documents. "Almost as much as you enjoyed spending my college fund on 5-star hotels and first-class flights." "We can fight this," Dad said, still restraining Zane. "Get a lawyer." "With what money?" I stood up. "Everything goes through me now. Remember?" I walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Zane, don't be late for that interview. Breach of contract has serious consequences." Outside, I took a deep breath of evening air. My phone buzzed. Mila calling. "Did you do it?" she asked. "Phase 1 complete. Serenity gets the company remains. Zane gets a taste of humble pie. And our parents—" I looked back at the house. They're starting to understand exactly what they signed. And the house? They'll find out soon enough. I got into my car. The first payment is due next week. Want to bet they miss it? Nadine. Mila hesitated. Are you sure this is what you want? I started the engine, watching through the window as my family argued inside. Mom was crying, Dad was pacing, and Zane was throwing what looked like a full-blown tantrum. What I want... I pulled away from the curb. What I want is for them to feel what I felt. Helpless, betrayed, at the mercy of someone else's decisions. And then... I smiled as the house disappeared in my rearview mirror. Then they'll learn that karma doesn't just come around. Sometimes it comes with a legally binding contract. The certified letter sat unopened on my desk. I already knew what it contained. Confirmation that my family had missed their first payment, right on schedule. My intercom buzzed. Your mother is here, again. Send her in. Mom burst through the door, waving a paper. They're going to take the house. The bank called and... Sit down, Mom. I gestured to the chair across from me. Let me explain how this works. How what works? We need help, Nadine. Real help, not more of your legal games. You missed the payment. She deflated slightly. Zane. He didn't go to the interview. I know. I pulled out my tablet. He was too busy trying to pitch another startup to venture capitalists. Unfortunately for him, word gets around in the tech community. He's trying his best. No, he's doing what he's always done, expecting others to clean up his messes. I opened the contract. Section 7.2 clearly states what happens in case of default. The door burst open again. This time it was Zane, with Dad trailing behind him. You can't do this to us, Zane shouted. I'm not doing anything. You're doing it to yourselves. I stood up. The contract specified maintaining employment and making timely payments. You failed at both. We'll get the money, Dad said. Just give us more time. Like you gave me time to find tuition money? I walked around the desk. Or did you forget how quickly you handed over my future to your precious son? That was different, Mom protested. You're right. It was different. Because I actually succeeded despite what you did. Wild golden boy here. I gestured to Zane. Well, the results speak for themselves. Zane lunged forward, but Dad caught him again. You think you're so perfect? You think you've won? Won? I laughed. This isn't about winning, Zane. This is about consequences. Speaking of which, I pressed the intercom. Send them in. The door opened, and 2 men in suits entered. Who are they? Mom whispered. Representatives from the bank. I sat back down. They're here to begin foreclosure proceedings. Foreclosure? Dad's face went white. But we signed everything over to you. Exactly, which means I get to decide what happens next. I nodded to the bank representatives. Show them the papers. As the men explained the situation, I watched my family crumble. Mom sobbing, Dad looking defeated, and Zane, finally, silent. You have 30 days to vacate the property, one of the men concluded. 30 days? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. But where will we go? That's not my problem. I stood up. Just like my college education wasn't your problem. Nadine, please. Dad stepped forward. We're your family. Family? I walked to the window, looking out at the city. Let me tell you about family. I turned back to face them. Family doesn't steal from their children. Family doesn't play favorites. Family doesn't betray trust and then act surprised when that trust is broken forever. We thought we were doing the right thing, Mom pleaded. The right thing? I slammed my hand on the desk. The right thing would have been telling me to my face. The right thing would have been giving me a choice. Instead, I had to overhear it through a door, like I was nothing, like my future meant nothing. Zane stepped forward. Is that what this is about? You're still angry about college? No, Zane. I'm angry because none of you ever acknowledged what you did. You just expected me to understand, to forgive, to be the good little daughter who always figures things out. I looked each of them in the eye. Well, I figured it out all right. I figured out exactly how to make you feel what I felt. By making us homeless? Dad's voice cracked. By making you powerless. I gestured to the bank representatives. They'll escort you out. As they turned to leave, Mom stopped at the door. We do love you, Nadine. Despite everything. Love? I picked up the contract. Love wouldn't have needed a contract. Love wouldn't have betrayed me in the first place. After they left, I sat in my quiet office, holding the contract that had given me everything I'd wanted. My phone buzzed. Ramon. It's done, I said before he could speak. Are you okay? I looked at my reflection in the window, remembering that young girl who'd stood outside her parents' bedroom door, learning about betrayal. I'm fine, I replied. Everything's going according to plan. That's what worries me, he said quietly. Plans like this have a way of costing more than we expect. I hung up without responding. The sun was setting over the city, casting long shadows across my office. In 30 days, my family would lose their home. In 30 days, my revenge would be complete. So why didn't it feel like victory? The key felt heavy in my hand as I unlocked the front door of my childhood home. The house was empty now. My family had moved out yesterday, leaving behind 30 years of memories and a thick layer of dust. My footsteps echoed through the vacant rooms. A family photo still hung crooked on the wall. Mom, Dad, Zane, and me at my high school graduation, before everything changed. My phone buzzed. Mila. I'm at the house, I said. How does it feel? Like... I touched the wall where my height had been marked year after year. Like winning a game nobody wanted to play. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Zane standing on the porch, alone. I have to go, I told Mila. I opened the door. Zane looked different, humbled maybe. He wore a cheap suit, not designer labels. Before you slam the door, he said quickly, I got the job, the coding position at Serenity's company. Congratulations, you're finally earning an honest living. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked into the empty living room, his footsteps stirring up dust motes that danced in the afternoon light. Remember when I taught you to ride a bike in the driveway? He asked. Remember when you spent my college fund on luxury hotels? He winced. I deserve that. I deserve all of it, but Mom and Dad made their choice. They made a mistake. He turned to face me. A terrible, awful mistake that hurt you deeply. But this? He gestured around the empty house. This isn't justice, Nadine. This is cruelty. Funny how cruelty only matters when it happens to you. You're right. His voice was quiet. I was cruel. I was entitled and selfish and stupid. But you're better than that. Better than me. I walked to the kitchen where Mom's recipes were still taped inside the cabinet doors. Maybe I'm not. The sister I knew would never... The sister you knew died the day she heard her parents giving away her future through a bedroom door. I slammed the cabinet shut. She died working 3 jobs to survive while you lived like a king on her money. Then bring her back. He stepped closer. Be that person again. The one who was strong enough to succeed despite everything we did to her. Not this version who thinks revenge will heal old wounds. Get out. No! He stood his ground. Not until you hear me say what I should have said years ago. I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, profoundly sorry for what I did to you. The words hung in the air between us. Through the window, I could see the treehouse Dad had built us, now weathered and gray. Sorry doesn't change anything, I said, but my voice wavered. No, it doesn't. But this is your chance to be different, to be better. He pulled out a folded paper. Here's my first paycheck. It's not much, but it's a start. A real start this time. I stared at the check. What do you want from me? Give them back the house. Let me pay you back. Slowly, honestly, the way I should have from the beginning. His eyes met mine. Be the sister who taught me about integrity, not the one who taught me about revenge. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. We love you no matter what. I sank into the kitchen chair, the only furniture left in the house. I wanted you to hurt like I hurt. We are hurting, but hurting us won't heal you. He knelt beside me. Let it go, Nadine. Not for us. For you. The afternoon light streamed through the windows, illuminating years of family photos I hadn't taken down. Birthday parties, Christmases, graduations, a family that was broken, but not beyond repair. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Ramon, draw up new papers. I want to transfer the house back to my parents. I looked at Zane and draft a repayment agreement, a fair one this time. After I hung up, Zane hugged me. For the first time in years, I let him. The coding job, I said, pulling away. Don't screw it up. I won't, I promise. Your promises don't mean much to me anymore. I know. He headed for the door. That's why I'll show you instead. After he left, I walked through the house one last time. In my old bedroom, I found a photo I'd missed, me at my law school graduation, standing alone, proud and defiant. I took it down and smiled. That girl had been stronger than she knew, strong enough to succeed, and now, maybe, strong enough to forgive. My phone buzzed. Dad. Thank you. I texted back. Don't make me regret this. Then I locked up the house, not as its owner, but as its daughter. Some debts, I realized, are better left unpaid, and some victories come not from winning, but from choosing to end the game.